There's something strange about memory. Not just what we remember, but who remembers. You look into a mirror and expect it to reflect you. But what if the mirror forgets? What if your reflection is no longer who you were, or who you thought you were? What if it's just light bending into a shape that once made sense? In this section, we step into the soft disorientation of identity and memory, where the person we are is quietly rewritten by time, by perception, by emotion, and by the mind's gentle habit of forgetting what doesn't feel safe to hold. You are not who you were 5 years ago, or 5 minutes ago, not because you changed, but because the mind is not a recording, it's a storyteller. It edits, it rearranges, it protects, and sometimes, in the name of survival, it forgets. This forgetting isn't failure, it's function. The mirror forgets not to erase you, but to give you the space to become something new. Imagine a reflection that lets go of yesterday's version of you so that tonight, you can rest, not in who you were, but in who you're softly becoming. There's a kind of peace in no longer needing to be consistent. To realize that you don't have to carry every version of yourself into every new thought. You can drop them, like coats at the door. Heavy, wet with memory, no longer warm. You can sit here bare, unburdened, and still be whole. Because the you that remains isn't made of memory. It's made of presence. A quiet now. A soft noticing. A breath that doesn't need proof. Sometimes, at night, you'll feel a flicker of something, a memory not quite clear, but not quite gone. A version of you that once tried, once hurt, once hoped. You don't need to call them back. You don't need to fix what they didn't finish. You only need to nod. Softly. Like an old friend passing on a foggy path. Not every ghost needs to be invited in. Some just need to be acknowledged and released. You may feel sometimes like your past is slipping through your fingers. But maybe that's not loss. Maybe it's mercy. Because not every moment was meant to be remembered. Some were meant to pass, like rain that never asked to be caught. You don't owe your past your presence. And your future doesn't demand your past. All that is asked of you is this breath. This one. Right now. Tonight you are allowed to forget. To forget who you thought you were. To forget the script that said you had to always be healing, or growing, or becoming. You are not a project. You are a person. Soft. Scattered. Sincere. And even if the mirror can't remember your name, you are still here. You are still enough. Let the forgetting be part of the piece. Let the mirror lose track of you, and feel the relief of not needing to be known. Because even when no reflection returns, even when the story unravels, even when the names blur, and the past dissolves, you are still loved by the quiet. You are still held by the present. You are still real in this moment of stillness. And for now, that is more than enough. We spend so much of life reaching for a way out. Out of overthinking. Out of loneliness. Out of the aching loop of questions we can't quite name. But what if there is no exit? Not because you're trapped, but because there was never a door to begin with. Just space. Just thought. Just the mind folding in on itself like fog returning to sea. It's comforting to imagine that one day, clarity will come. That a single moment of understanding will open a door, and you'll walk out, free, final, whole. But maybe the mind doesn't work like that. Maybe there are no doors. No gates. No final answers that end the search. Only corridors that loop gently, spirals that soften, and questions that become softer the longer you sit with them. What if peace isn't found in escape, but in surrender? What if rest comes not from finding the answer, but from laying down the need to answer at all? You were never meant to run forever through the halls of your own mind. You were meant to pause, to sit, to breathe, to let the floor become soft beneath you and realize you are home. Even here. Think of the ocean. How it stretches, deep and endless, and yet no one asks it where it ends. We accept its vastness, its movement, its quiet refusal to explain itself. Your mind is no different. It doesn't need to end to be beautiful. It doesn't need to make sense to be safe. It only needs to be given permission to be. Sometimes we imagine healing as a place, a destination where everything makes sense, where the pain is gone, where the questions are finally quiet. But that's just another room in the loop. Another illusion of exit. Because healing isn't a hallway that leads out, it's a chair placed softly in the middle of the maze. A place to rest. A moment to say, I don't need to escape. I just need to breathe. And somehow, that breathe becomes the answer. You don't have to exit the loop. You just have to stop running. Let the thoughts circle. Let the questions echo. Let the silence widen. And in that stillness, you'll notice something you never could while searching. The loop was never a trap. It was a rhythm. A pulse. A heartbeat. A lullaby. It was never asking you to escape. It was asking you to slow down. To drift. To dissolve. To be held. There is such grace in staying. Not as surrender, but as peace. To stop clawing at answers. To stop shaking the door handle of your own thoughts. And to say softly, if there is no exit, then maybe I was never lost. Because sometimes the most healing truth is that there's nowhere else to go. You are already inside the quiet. You just hadn't noticed it yet. Let that noticing be enough. Let this breath be the only direction you follow. Let tonight be the place where the illusion of exit fades. And you finally arrive. There's a moment, just before sleep, when the mind softens, not from logic, but from letting go. No more conclusions. No more spirals. Just stillness. This section is that moment. Not the answer. Not the awakening. Just the gentle dissolve. You've wandered through mirrors, loops, and thoughts too wide to hold. You've stood at the edge of questions that have no ground beneath them. And now, there's nowhere left to walk but inward. Not towards something. Not away from anything. Just into the pause. Into the quiet. Into that tender space where sound stops echoing and you stop needing to know. It's strange, isn't it? How silence isn't just the absence of noise, but a presence all its own. A kind of warmth. A kind of company. A kind of slow unraveling where your mind finally says, I'm tired of thinking. And for once you agree. There's a beauty in this unknowing. Not terrifying. Not confusing. Just real. Because somewhere in this haze, you realize, you were never your questions. You were never your theories, your spirals, your reaching. You were always the space between them. The breathe between thoughts. The quiet before the answer. You are not the voice in your head. You are the silence that listens. In this moment, there's nothing to fix. Nothing to solve. Nothing to hold on to. Not even yourself. Let that be okay. Let it be more than okay. Let it be beautiful. There's nothing more sacred than a mind that is finally tired in the right way. Not burned out, but released. Can you feel it? That soft loosening? That gentle surrender? It doesn't feel like giving up. It feels like becoming. As if silence was always waiting for you to stop trying to fill it. And now that you have, it wraps around you. Like a blanket. Like a breath. Like a home you didn't realize you missed. You're not fading. You're returning. To a quieter self. To the you underneath the overthinking. To the part of you that doesn't need to be brilliant, or wise or right. Just still. You are not disappearing. You are dissolving into truth. So don't try to wake up from this thought. Don't try to explain it. Just let yourself rest in it. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your breath slow. Let your eyes soften and your heart loosen its grip. There is no final message here. No moral. No twist ending. Just a voice softly saying, you made it. Even if you don't know where you are. Sleep isn't failure. Sleep is surrender. Not to chaos, but to peace. The kind that doesn't need to be understood. Only felt. So feel it now. This ending with no edges. This silence with no source. This quiet that doesn't ask you to leave, because now you are the silence. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, and then notice yourself noticing? Like standing in a hallway of mirrors, not looking at yourself, but through yourself. A gaze behind the gaze. A thought behind the thought. There's a strange quiet in that moment. A gentle unease. Not fear, but distance. A soft step back from your own mind, like watching your reflection in water and realizing the water is watching you too. This is the beginning of the loop. Not a loop of chaos, but of awareness. A loop that hums instead of shouts. A loop that doesn't spin in circles, but folds inward, like a dream remembering itself. Your mind is a lighthouse and an ocean. It sends out signals and tries to catch them. You think. Then you notice that you're thinking. Then you wonder, who noticed? And just like that, you're drifting. This is called metacognition, the mind watching itself think. It sounds simple, even useful. But when you're lying awake at night, it feels like a quiet trap. Because who is the you doing the thinking? And who is the you noticing the thinking? And who is asking that? There's no emergency here. No need to find answers. Let the questions rest like fallen leaves in still water. Let the reflection ripple gently and fade. Overthinking is often misunderstood. It's not always frantic or fast. Sometimes it's slow, quiet, tender. Sometimes overthinking is just your mind walking in circles because it forgot where it began. Or maybe it never began at all. Maybe the loop was always here, long before your first thought. And it's okay. It's okay to be caught in that loop. To drift between the mirrors of your own awareness. To feel like a thought thinking itself. You are not broken for noticing too much. You are not lost for watching your own mind wander. You are simply deep. And depth feels like distance. But what if that distance is actually space? A safe space. A mental room with no ceiling. A sky without walls. A night that holds you instead of hiding from you. Right now, as you lie here, breathing quietly, there is a version of you watching. Not judging. Not solving. Just noticing. Gently. Softly. And perhaps there is another version noticing that, and another still. And they all echo back like soft whispers in a canyon. This is not madness. This is awareness unfolding. A mind blooming in its own reflection. You don't need to stop the loop. You don't need to escape the mirror. You can rest inside the loop. Because this isn't a prison, it's a pattern. And patterns can be beautiful. Even if they don't make sense. Even if they never end. Especially then. Let it echo. Let it shimmer. Let yourself be watched, gently, by yourself. The mind that watches itself isn't broken. It's just aware. And awareness, at its softest, feels like falling asleep in a room made of thoughts, with no doors, no answers, and no need to leave. Just rest. Just drift. Just be. Some thoughts don't arrive to be answered. They arrive to be felt. They drift in like fog, thick, slow, shapeless. They don't knock. They seep. And before you realize it, they've softened the walls of your certainty. These thoughts aren't problems. They're portals. But they don't open outward, they fold inward. Like the question, what if I'm not real? A strange sentence. But one that doesn't need a reply. Because it's not asking you to solve it. It's asking you to sit with it. To sit with the dissonance. The dizziness. The echo. There are questions that loop. Like, who am I if no one is looking? What exists when nothing is observed? If time passes but I don't feel it, did it really pass? They aren't puzzles. They're mirrors without edges. You enter them, and find no walls, no floor, no sky. Only reflection. Only wondering. They don't end because they were never made to. They exist for the experience, not the conclusion. You might be lying here now, trying to find the edge of your own thoughts. But every answer just creates another doorway. Every conclusion turns into a new corridor. like a hallway that bends slightly at each turn, just enough that you never quite see where it ends. That's the beauty of this question with no exit. It reminds you that some truths are not meant to be known, only noticed. And when you stop trying to escape the question, you find stillness inside it. Like sitting in the middle of a maze and realizing the walls are made of mist. You were never trapped. You were simply meant to pause. There is something deeply human about this, to want to know, to need to know, to believe that if you just think one layer deeper, you'll finally find the floor of your mind. But what if there is no floor? What if the act of searching is the very thing that keeps you afloat? And what if the ground you've been chasing is the silence you've been avoiding? Thought is not a ladder. It's a spiral. You don't climb it, you circle it. And with every loop, you meet yourself again, slightly different, slightly softer. This section, this question, isn't here to give you an answer. It's here to give you permission. Permission to not finish the thought. Permission to lie back and let the question echo without reply. Permission to let it live in your chest like a quiet pulse. Because when you stop trying to answer it, you start to feel it. And it feels like water, cold, clear, endless. And somehow, peaceful. Right now, in this moment, there's nothing to fix. No final thought to catch. No exit to find. You are exactly where you're meant to be, in the middle of a question that doesn't close. And that's not a failure. That's the design. Some questions exist the way the moon exists. Silent. Constant. Watching. They don't light the path forward. They just remind you that there is a sky. So breathe. Let the thoughts ripple and fade. Let the question remain a question. And if your mind begins to wander again, let it. Let it spiral. Let it echo. You're not falling apart. You're falling inward. And in this inward fall, there's no danger. Only softness. Only stillness. Only the quiet magic of wondering, without needing to know. What if the mind isn't a box, but a room without walls? A place where thoughts float instead of sit. Where identity has no corners, no ceiling, only space. When you close your eyes at night, what shape does your self take? You can't hold it. You can't measure it. You can't even find where it begins. Because the mind doesn't live in straight lines. It lives in sensations. In flickers. In shadows. There is a strange relief in realizing that not everything about you needs to be defined. That you can exist as a fog instead of a frame. As a feeling instead of a fact. In this section, we let go of the idea that your mind must be figured out. Instead, we sit quietly in the open room, letting each thought rise and fall like candlelight in a breeze. Some will flicker, some will fade, and some will never quite light at all. And that's okay. You see, most of us grow up believing that the self is a structure, a personality, a blueprint, a name. But when you lie awake in the dark, feeling the soft hum of your thoughts drifting like mist, you realize that the self is more like a sky. Wide. Unbordered. Changing. And the more you try to box it in, the more it slips through your fingers. Imagine a room with no floor, no roof, no doors, just gentle space stretching outward in all directions. This is your mind at rest. Not cluttered, not confused, just unconfined. And within it, your thoughts don't have to be organized. They can scatter. They can overlap. They can hum without harmony. Because in a room without walls, even confusion becomes beautiful. Sometimes healing doesn't look like understanding yourself. Sometimes it looks like unframing yourself. Letting go of the shape you thought you had to be. Letting go of the outline that made you feel small. And resting in the vast, soft unknown of who you might be. The part of you that changes. That forgets. That remembers only when it's ready. That part is free. The room without walls doesn't ask anything from you. It doesn't need a story. It doesn't need closure. It only offers space. Space to unravel. Space to wonder. Space to simply sit with what is. Right now, you are in that room. This moment, this breath, this quiet spiral of thought, you are not enclosed by anything. You are open. And being open doesn't mean being lost. It means you're alive. What would happen if you stopped trying to define every feeling? What if sadness didn't need a reason? What if confusion didn't mean failure? What if being unsure was not a flaw, but a doorway? Let yourself soften here. Let your mind float outward. Like light through a fogged window. No walls. No answers. Only warmth. Only the soft hum of a mind finally allowed to be as big, and formless, and mysterious as it truly is. The room without walls has always been here. You just needed silence to see it. And now that you've found it, you don't need to leave. There's no exit. But there's no need for one. Because this room, this endless room of quiet thought and unspoken truths, was never meant to be escaped. It was meant to hold you. Exactly as you are.